Hello, you're watching World News live from Warsaw. My name is Sasha Farbach. Overnight, Russia launched a large-scale drone and missile attack on Ukrainian cities. In Kyiv, at least 8 people have been killed, including 1 child, and 38 more injured after Russian ballistic missiles and drones struck the Ukrainian capital. The overnight attacks damaged civilian infrastructure across Kyiv. Overall, Russia launched 3 waves of missiles towards the Ukrainian capital. The attacks damaged 2 residential buildings in the Donetsky district, as well as an office building, a residential complex, and a local kindergarten in the Dniprovsky district. The Shevchenkivsky district was set ablaze as the attack sparked fires in a residential building, an office, 2 commercial buildings, and a school. The full scale of casualties and damage is still being determined as search and rescue operations continue into the morning. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy has appointed Olha Stefanishyna, a former Minister of Justice, as the new Ukrainian Ambassador to the United States. He also added that this Friday his team will meet with U.S. President Donald Trump's team to continue talks about post-war security guarantees for Kyiv.
I just spoke with Olha Stefanishyna, now the new ambassador of Ukraine to the United States of America. The formal procedures are completed. Today, I signed a decree on the appointment of the ambassador. I have identified key tasks for updating the work of our embassy and, most importantly, to fully implement all agreements with Washington, our agreements with President Trump, primarily in the defense sector. In many ways, the long-term guarantee of Ukraine's security depends on relations with America. There are 2 Ukrainian proposals on the table. These are strong proposals. This is an arms agreement for Ukraine. This is an agreement on modern drones for the United States. And we are counting on rapid progress in our relations. On Friday, there will be meetings with President Trump's team in New York. Everyone who is working on security guarantees will be involved, the military, political, economic components of security guarantees. The task is to accelerate as much as possible so that this is also a lever of influence. The Russians must see how serious the world is and how bad the consequences will be for Russia if the war continues.
Polish Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski expressed disbelief, saying he finds it hard to imagine anyone taking action that could undermine such an effective program. Referring to Poland's investment in Starlink, his comments come after Polish President Karol Nawrocki vetoed legislation that would have allowed funding for Starlink internet in Ukraine.
It is in Poland's interest to have influence. Firstly, influence on Ukraine defending itself, and secondly, on resolutions during and after this war. Our investment in Starlink is an example of one of the best uses of funds to help Ukraine and strengthen the negotiating and driving force of Poland. This is why I find it hard to believe that someone could do something to jeopardize this very effective program.
Polish President Nawrocki chooses to be a destructor of Polish politics, said Wojciech Przybylski, editor-in-chief of the Visegrad Insight, in an interview with TVP World. Przybylski said the president vetoed the law extending financial support for Ukrainian refugees in Poland just to oppose the government.
He's using the constitutional facade in order to try to undercut the politics and democratic legitimacy of the government as things stand in Poland. And Poland is a parliamentary republic. President has unusually strong position for a parliamentary republic, to the point that some people say this is semi-presidential. But the president may play only a constructive role or a destructive role to the government policy. And it can be constructive in a sense of pushing things forward and creating more ambitious policies, or he can veto and block. And he chooses, apparently Mr. Nawrocki chooses to veto and block and to be the destructor of the Polish politics. And to what end? In the given circumstances, to what end?
On Wednesday, Moldova celebrated its Independence Day with the French President Emmanuel Macron, German Chancellor Friedrich Merz, and Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk in attendance of the festivities. Speaking at a concert last evening, the leaders reaffirmed their support for Moldova's sovereignty and its future accession to the EU. Their visit came just a day before campaigns begin for next month's parliamentary elections, which are marred by claims of Russian interference targeting Moldova's pro-EU government.
As the sun set over Chisinau, thousands gathered in the streets to celebrate Moldova's Independence Day. Among them were the country's pro-European President Maya Sandu and leaders of EU member states.
Our common goal is Moldova's accession to the European Union.
European values, freedom, democracy and solidarity. Moldova's future is in the European Union. Europe is a project of peace, and Moldova is part of that project. Cherish it, and we, the Polish people, stand with you. Long live Moldova in Europe. Long live independent Moldova. Long live a united Europe. Thank you all. We're there, and we're going to be there.
The celebrations came as Moldova prepares to hold parliamentary elections on September 28th, which will determine whether the country will move closer to the EU or Russia. In July, President Maya Sandu warned of an unprecedented attempt by Russia to influence the vote, saying that the Kremlin wants to control Moldova starting this fall.
Denmark has accused 3 Americans of being involved in a plot to put distance between the country and Greenland. This is the latest chapter in tensions between Washington and Copenhagen over the Arctic island. Our defense correspondent, Zuzana Jurek, brings us this next story.
Greenland.
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 Greenland. We have to have Greenland.
Greenland, a Danish territory in the Arctic Circle, has become the point of contention in Washington-Copenhagen relations since Trump's return to the White House in January. And it seems that a heating of tensions is in store, as 3 US citizens have been accused by the Danish government of being involved in covert influence operations on the island, the suspected nature of which is
to try to put more distance between Copenhagen and Greenland, which could be exploited by the Americans politically, economically, or even militarily.
The Danish Ministry of Foreign Affairs called for an immediate explanation.
This is inherently and completely unacceptable, and therefore I have decided that we will convene the American-charged affair.
For the Danish Prime Minister, the incident shows the gravity of Washington's intentions vis-à-vis the Arctic island.
I have said that I believe President Trump is serious when he says that the United States wants to take over Greenland. And what you showed us today, I think, underlines that seriousness.
This is the first time in the history of NATO when one NATO member threatens the other one with the use of military power in order to change the relationship.
But why exactly is America so invested in Greenland?
Greenland, in terms of it's strategically important. There is a big U.S. air base there at Toul, which is part of the early warning system, initially against the Soviet Union, now against Russia. There are rare earth minerals.
We have a U.S. space base in Greenland with very important radars and sensors which are able to detect intercontinental ballistic missile. We see that this tiny military installation in Greenland is very important for this global competition.
The Greenlanders themselves don't appear keen on changing ownership hands, voting in a majority for the pro-independence Demokratiet party during the March parliamentary elections. For TVP World, Zuzana Jurek.
Germany is now home to a new Rheinmetall ammunitions plant, which is set to become the largest of its kind in Europe once at full capacity. The opening ceremony of the factory was attended by German officials, the CEO of Rheinmetall, and NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte.
As Europe enters an era of militarization, compelled to do so by Russia's ongoing invasion of Ukraine, Europe's largest arms producer, Rheinmetall, is opening a new facility that will become the biggest ammunition plant once at full scale. Located in Unterlitz, Germany, the factory will likely produce around 25,000 rounds this year alone. That figure is expected to rise an astounding 14 times by 2027, with annual capacity reportedly reaching upwards of 350,000 rounds. The opening ceremony of the ammunition plant, attended by Germany's defense minister and vice-chancellor, as well as Rheinmetall's CEO and NATO Secretary-General, proved to be a perfect place to reassure of Berlin's commitment to supporting Kyiv.
Obviously, Germany is the biggest supporter of Ukraine after the US, and our role will become even more important in the months and years to come. So there's nobody I know in the world who will ever doubt our commitment in supporting Ukraine.
Mark Rutte also stressed that discussions on security guarantees are still ongoing, despite scarce messaging about the process since Monday last week.
This is detailed, difficult stuff. You have to hammer it all out. So the fact that 9 days later we have not agreed on everything is not a bad signal. It means that we are working hard, and I'm absolutely sure we will get there, deciding on the security guarantees, what it will look like with American involvement, US involvement, plus, hopefully, as soon as possible, that meeting between Zelenskyy and Putin.
The Rheinmetall plant boasts a total investment volume of 500 million euros. The company's CEO said similar factories could be built at a comparable pace in other NATO countries like Romania, which has also signed an agreement with the manufacturer for the construction of a munitions ignition powder factory.
According to Hungarian authorities, oil reserves will only last for up to 30 days if the supply via the Druzhba pipelines is not restored by September. In this case, Hungary will be forced to use their strategic reserves, which are expected to last for a month. As stated by the president of Hungarian energy company MOL, Zsolt Hernady, if Budapest continues to receive Russian oil through alternative routes, there is a risk that refineries will not operate at full capacity. This, according to Hernady, would affect not only Hungary, but the entire Central European region. In the event of an interruption in Russian oil supplies via the pipeline, Hungary has the right to import it by sea via Croatia. It will be much more expensive. Recently, Ukrainian forces attacked the pipeline on Russian territory 3 times, interrupting supplies to Hungary. The attacks were criticized by officials in Budapest, who called them an attempt to drag Hungary into the war. At the same time, Hungarian authorities called on Ukraine to stop attacking the pipelines and jeopardizing Budapest's energy security. The latest episode of TVP World's Bottom Line explored the topic of Russia's energy projects in the face of isolation from the West. Svetomir Nikolov, energy and climate analyst at the Center for the Study of Democracy, said that after 2022, Russia turned to Chinese equipment, but the problem here is it doesn't match Western reliability or efficiency.
Most ambitious energy projects have always depended on outside know-how. For example, offshore Arctic drilling, advanced refining, and especially LNG require sophisticated compressors, turbines, liquefaction trains, cryogenic valves, and etc. Almost all of these came from Western or Japanese suppliers. And we already know that after 2022, that supply chain was cut off. And the consequences are clear. The Arctic LNG 2 project, a flagship of Russia's future exports, has been repeatedly disrupted. Russia has turned to Chinese equipment, but the problem here is it doesn't match Western reliabilities or efficiency. And this is reflected in numbers. The Russian LNG exports fell by about 4% in the first half of 2025 to roughly 15 million tons. And isolation that is not catastrophic, but it represents a stagnation at the time when Moscow had promised growth.
The men's European Championships in basketball have kicked off on Wednesday. The 2025 Eurobasket is being held in 4 countries: Cyprus, Finland, Latvia, and Poland. The first games in Katowice today will see the host team face off against Slovenia and one of the tournament's favorites, France, taking on Belgium. When asked what makes playing for the national team so special, French team captain Gershon Yabusele gave an all-encompassing response that spoke for national players beyond just France.
I don't think it's just about the French national team. It's about every player's nation. When you play for your country, it's a different feelings. You know, it's proud. You know, you take everything for granted. And me, when I was able to go with the national team, that was the best thing that ever happened in my life. We talk about it with players. You know, when you win a title with your club in a season is amazing, but winning with your national team is a completely different feeling. You have every people in your country, not just the basketball fan. You have everybody in your country watching you and want your success. So it's always a different feeling when you put on a French jersey.
And with that, we conclude this news update, but there's much more coming up right here on TVP World, so don't go away.